This is episode number 31 of DevOps Paradox with Darren Pope and Victor Farsick. I am Darren.
And I am Victor.
Today we have a question from one of our friends, Andreas, but I actually don't have it. Victor has it. Go, Victor.
Yes, I will read it as is. And it says, shared services team approach break the DevOps rules. And then the question mark. In other words, having a shared services team, does that break is that helping you or not helping to become DevOps? And actually, that's not a question from Andreas. That's a question that people on a session that he had on a meetup, people asked him, and then he turned back to us to see what we think.
In other words, he dumped off that to us to deal with.
He delegated.
Yes, he delegated because we're actually doing it and we're reporting back to him. So that's true delegation. If you don't understand the differences between delegation and dumping, go figure it out. And I'm poking fun at you, Andreas, but this is a good question.
It is.
I tend to think that no, it doesn't break it, but it depends.
You know, it's a misleading question because no department threatens or helps or damages or anything by default. Just having a department does not really mean much. Now, shared services team, if they do things right, they're not only that they're not breaking any DevOps rules, and to begin with, Andreas, I don't know what the DevOps rules are, but I will use imaginary rules. It doesn't break them. How, at least not in theory. Now, in practice, it really depends how shared services is implemented. If a shared service is, you open a ticket for me and I'm going to do something for you, then yes, the answer is yes. If shared services are creating services for other teams to consume and helping them, then the answer is no.
Exactly. And let me take a stab at what I think the DevOps rules are.
Go ahead. I'm going to learn something because I have no idea.
Well, just because of my day-to-day people that I deal with a lot, most people, I believe, incorrectly define DevOps as developers are in charge of everything, including production.
No. That's not the case.
No, I know that, but that's what a lot of people think DevOps means. Right? It's everything, you make the commit and it goes to production and you're in charge of it. That's what management wants you to think anyway.
Yeah. But then there is also the other side of the coin that I hear many people thinking that DevOps is me doing the same thing as before and being called DevOps. Like I was in charge of XYZ. Before I was shared services, now I'm a DevOps team. So I think you're right, Darren, but I also don't think that there is such a thing as being a DevOps team, like shared services becoming a DevOps team. That's not it either.
Yeah, because if you were to at least follow the DevOps team, there is no shared in DevOps. Yeah. We don't have Dev shared ops.
So it is kind of simple, and actually the name tells you everything. It's about developers and operators working together to manage the whole life cycle of an application or applications or the system, right? It's kind
simplistic.
Of combining the knowledge of operations and development into one
umbrella. Yeah, one umbrella.
Exactly.
So let me go back to your definition. If shared services is nothing but a Jira factory, then that's wrong. I'm in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if shared services is creating services for people to consume along the lines of a Google AWS to where it says self-service is possible, that's good.
Yeah.
However, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So you got to start at the Jira. Right?
I mean, maybe start as in a temporary solution, but ultimately, whenever people ask me kind of what do you think shared services should be? And my answer is, the same thing as what Amazon and Azure are doing, kind of like in Google, kind of. It's just that you're fulfilling the same role just within a company.
Exactly.
Your
With the
job
company defined rules, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, there are always some rules defined, right? But basically, your job is to create a button for me to click.
Yeah.
That's a job.
Which is not what most people are, because most people in shared services that I have seen are not developers. And in that kind of role, if you're producing services, you have to be a developer. Now, you may not be a deep developer, but you have to be able to develop.
Yes. You don't faint when you see code.
That's an interesting way to put it. Because all right, so let me play out this of how let me take fictional company XYZ. I lived in Canada for 2 weeks, so everything's Z now. We have company XYZ. I'm back in the US now, and they don't have any automation at all. Forget Jenkins. This is okay. Here comes the second mention of Phoenix Project. Right. This is the beginning of Phoenix Project. There's nothing. And then they've had shared services all along, but it's basically been nothing more than a Jira factory. And finally somebody wakes up. It's like, look, I am tired of doing this because I'm getting 6 of these a week. I need to come up with a way to at least automate it for myself, if not for anybody else. Right? Good first step. And then you start realizing, okay, I've been using this automated way of doing X because we're still getting in 6 to 10 of these a week. I've had to make a couple of changes, but now it's good. I haven't made any changes to it in a month. I'm using the exact same thing day after day after day. Let's say it's just onboarding new people to teams, right, from an identity perspective. And it's not just identity, but hey, we got to make sure they have the correct permissions on their GitHub repositories, and they're in the right Confluence space and all the other stuff, right? I now have an easy button for that used to take me hours, now it takes me seconds. But now that I've got a baked process, it's like, well, why do I even need to do this? I can hand this over to everybody else just to do for themselves. That's a logical continuum, right? Most people try to get from Jira Factory to completely self-service in one jump.
No, I mean,
that's stupid.
Most people do, but then most people fail. As easy as that. So it is important to understand the end goal. Like, and the end goal is whatever it is, and it's something that you will not accomplish in a few months. And then you figure out what can you do. Right. Short term, kind of. It's a reality. I mean, if that company XYZ, whichever it is, if they are so far behind, then of course you cannot do everything at once, and you should.
And I think the mindset behind that is, especially if they're trying to get from A to Z in one jump, they're treating it as a project. And I want to challenge that mindset. Don't think of that because that would be a project to go that big.
When you say a project, you mean it has a beginning and an end, right?
And a huge end. Yeah, and a huge end, right? It's big bang versus what I just explained, where we went through like 5 or 6 different, and I'm going to say the word iteration, but it's not really an iteration, because within each one of those, I'm going through 5 or 6 experiments to finally end up at the final part. If you can think of these things as experiments, most companies will usually cut you a little bit of slack, give you some grace, because it's an experiment. We're going to try it for 2 weeks. We're going to put it in a sprint. We're going to experiment within a sprint. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, that may still be great, because at least we know that didn't work, or we saw halfway through, okay, that's not exactly right. We're going to pivot on the next sprint. We're going to keep playing this one out to see if there's anything else to dig out. Taking on an experimentation mind frame versus here's my Gantt chart to get through this sprint is very different. And I love my PMP people, but man, come on. just please get out of our way. Go over in your corner, draw your nice, pretty Gantt charts, produce the reports that make middle management happy. Notice I said middle management and not upper management. And, let's experiment and play out the experiment as best as we can.
With the whole problem with that Gantt chart is that it assumes that you know everything in advance, which you don't. And let's say that you do, but still, when the project is finished, so like let's say that hypothetical person in that company XYZ, right? He does the project and he finishes the project in 3 months of automated whatever he's automating, and the only thing that will happen is that will open new possibilities for new requests for people to come up with. So he's gonna get to the same point after that. He will be doing things better and all those things. But simply until you do those 3 months or whatever is the period of time, you don't realize what are the new challenges that you will be facing and new things that people will be asking, right? Before they were asking you for a VM, and now they're asking you for a whole cluster. And after that, they will be asking you for something else. So it's kind of, it's a constant struggle to... It's almost like a natural selection for Darwinism, like if an antelope becomes... too fast for lion to catch her, then lion will become faster as well. And then, but if he catches too many antelopes, then he will not have enough food. So there will be stuff like that. So it's a constant circle. There is no end to it.
It's the circle. Okay, I have to stop singing because Disney will fine us. Okay, so let's go back there for just a second because this is interesting. So I want to beat up on my PMPs a little bit more. Typically, at least the ones I've dealt with, not the PMPs, but projects, you're running a Gantt chart because it's something you've done before. If our process in a shared services team is to automate away all the things as best as we can, that's the long goal.
Yeah.
But my intermediate steps are we're experimenting to automate away the things we can automate away first, even if it's just for ourselves, to simplify it, standardize it. Then what's the use of a Gantt chart? Because once I'm done, it should be done. And I'll never do this same thing again.
So I have a much milder opinion on that than I had in the past. In the past, I was like, managers, out, Gantt charts out, right? But realistically, somebody needs to finance something. Somebody's giving money to somebody. Somebody's getting a paycheck and so on and so forth. So there must be some rough idea, some idea about usefulness of something and some idea about cost of something, right? No matter how I would like that that's not the case, simply that's how the world is. I cannot say to my company, look, I'm gonna work on something for the next year, and I don't know what that something will be. I don't know whether it will be beneficial and all those things, right? So some kind of a plan should be there, right? Or some idea about what you want to accomplish. The real challenge is that we cannot go to the other, just as we cannot have absolutely no idea and no plan and no budget and nothing, we cannot go to the other extreme that we are pretending that we know up to in our efficiency of when something will start and end. So it needs to be some kind of a balance.
Right. So we're not saying we're anti-Gantt charts. I am.
I am anti-Gantt charts, but...
Yeah. But if you are going to use them, be willing to make changes to them. It's just purely it's instead of using Gantt charts as a full end to end. Okay, hey, here's the full plan. I'll see you in 3 years. You got to be kidding me.
So here's the thing: if we expect a person, let's say a developer, an engineer, whatever the person is, to work continuously on something for weeks or months or whatever the period is, right? Then we cannot expect others involved in that project not to do the same. So, dear manager, you're also working for those months and you're adapting to the situation as well as engineer is. That's the thing. You start with an idea. It's going to take 3 months and it turns out to take 5. And after a week, you realize it's going to be 4. And after 3 weeks, so kind of like everybody's adapting to the changes and to what you learned yesterday. And so the fallacy is that people somehow still think that those working continuously and iteratively on something applies to some people and not to others. And that's where we have those discrepancies.
You just nailed it, right? And it goes back to what we've been saying. This is scientific method-ish, experimentation mindset, but it has to apply to everybody that's involved with the thing, whatever that thing is. That's cross-cutting from project management to development to operations to fill in the blank, including probably like the trash people too, because there's going to be higher levels of pizza boxes at certain parts of time. So they know on Fridays that, hey, they've had Thursday night, they had a bunch of extra pizza because they pulled an all-nighter, so I've got to bring a bigger container.
I mean, food is a good example. You're making a meal, right? And you have a recipe and you need tomatoes and meat and the cheese and this and that. And then at one moment you realize that tomatoes are rotten, right? You don't continue with the recipe.
You haven't seen me cook, have you?
Yeah, I'm not sure in your case. I order everything. So I'm guessing.
But that's right. If you hit a part, you stop. If something's broken, you stop. If you continue to press through, that's not a good thing.
And you adapt, kind of, if you continue with the cooking, and again, I'm guessing because I'm cook, but you taste and then you figure, oh, it needs more salt. Excellent. It's not kind of, oh, it tastes horrible, but the recipe said, so I'm going to keep it.
Right. But it gets back to, that's it. You just nailed it again.
I'm a nailer.
You're nailing it, man. This is the concept between following the recipe and checking and making sure, experimenting that it's good. So I'm either locked into that plan or I'm willing to make changes against that plan. Exactly.
I mean, you do use recipe if you're cooking, right?
Yeah. It's a framework.
Yeah. But you're not sticking to it 100%.
No, because like my mom doesn't like spicy food.
So
there's no way I'm going to add in extra spice into something. It's like, okay, it's going to go bland, and then I'll add it in for myself. Exactly. It's simple. Well, we think it's simple, but obviously we've seen a lot of 5-year Gantt charts that, oh yeah, in 5 years we're going to be here. I went, think about the technology we're talking about. Okay, I've picked this up. It was 5 months. Let's say it was a 5-month, not a 5-year. But the first month in, all of a sudden, let's say you were doing let's roll back history for just a second. Let's say, hey, I'm going to write a CLI. I'm going to use Go because Go's the new hotness. So I'm going to write that. And then all of a sudden, Cobra came out from Steve Francia, which if you don't know what Cobra is, it's basically the framework under every current command line. Steve wrote Hugo. He created Cobra. kubectl uses it. EKSctl. You name off any of the cuddles, it's using Cobra under the hood. So would I continue writing a CLI without using Cobra? The answer is I at least need to evaluate it, because I may be to the point of no return at this point based on a V1.
But that's what you would do, but in reality, most wouldn't. So in most cases, what would happen? So let's say that you have a CLI that you wrote yourself one way or another, and there are like 10 commands in that CLI. And you want to add the 11th command, and you can choose between two options: to rewrite it with Cobra, because over time it will definitely be beneficial, or add just one additional missing command to that CLI using whatever method you had before. The latter is cheaper for that single command. It is more expensive it will be more expensive when you reach additional three commands, right? But for that one command, it's cheaper.
Exactly.
So it doesn't fit kind of the mindset, because I have a project. I'm a manager. I have a project. It needs to finish in those 2 months. And don't give me now. It's going to be somebody else's problem. Why would I accept that?
Yeah. Again, I'm going back to, if you're not working under an experimentation mindset, if you're not willing to, do the work, see the results, evaluate the results, and feed those results back into your next step, I really question your efficiency as a fill in the blank, whatever that is. And it is involved across all things. Developer, operations, project management. It's that circle of life thing again, right? The PMP chases the developer's chasing the operations person, the operation person yells at management yells at PMP, and then the cycle starts all over again. That was right off the top of my head. It's no good, but it is now copyrighted, so nobody else can use it.
But, the other day I was in a conference, I was one of the panelists, and there was a discussion which is, I think, similar to this, and you'll see why later. It's kind of, should people be allowed to experiment and learn and stuff like that in their working hours? If they should it be 10%, 20%, those discussions. Mm-hmm. And my answer was, why the heck are we discussing that? Do whatever makes sense for you. Kind of, why are you even listening to what your manager is saying? Why do you do that? Why do you do that to yourself? Because the manager depends on you, not the other way around. That's the biggest fallacy of the whole idea. Yeah. Manager is not in charge.
Do I dare say they think they're in charge?
Huh?
Do I dare say that they think they are in charge?
Yeah, but basically, it's like, if you go down if I'm getting a new apartment now, I have workers working, and it doesn't really matter what I say. I can just kind of reevaluate when I think that they're going to finish, but they're going to finish whenever they finish.
Whenever they finish.
They're in real charge. And I'm just fooling myself. And in my head, I'm putting some kind of dates. Oh, I think that my apartment will be finished beginning of this week, end of that week, this month, that month. But basically, I'm not in charge. They're going to finish whenever they finish. And the only thing I can do is to assume that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and your responsibility as effectively, you're not the general contractor, but let's use that title for a second. It's your responsibility. So when they bring something to you, you deal with it. You don't say, oh, I'm on vacation. It'll be a week before I look at it.
Of course.
Because that's an immediate impact of a week to you.
Exactly. Because they are actually, and this is a real thing, they are sometimes blocked with, oh, should it be this shower or that shower? And then if I don't answer immediately, then if I don't help them immediately, let's say, making that decision, even though it's my apartment, they are going to be blocked, and then it's definitely going to be delayed. But that's the only thing I can do.
Man, we've talked about Simba, Lion King, Circle of Life. Okay, Gantt charts, PMP.
What was the question?
What was it? Sorry, Andreas, we did it again. What was the question? Read it. Do you start?
Does shared services team approach break the DevOps rules? Having a shared services team does not break any rule.
Correct.
Amazon is your shared services team. And I'm just saying not that only because everybody knows what it is. And it definitely doesn't break any rules.
In fact, I think there's great value in a shared services team.
Does
everybody want to manage their own fill-in-the-blank stack? The answer is no.
Of course. Why would my team do the same team as your team, and you do the same team as other team? Somebody already is in charge of all those common things and can help me out. That's brilliant. That's great. Now, if the question, if I would rewrite the question is, does shared services approach in practice break something kind of like statistically, then yes, definitely.
Yep.
Shared services are a complicated bunch of people in many companies.
and I have not seen. I've seen glimmers of hope, and I've seen things to where things can be automated. In a perfect world, shared services is doing nothing more than creating APIs that ServiceNow can call.
Yeah.
Right, the ITSM, which makes auditing happy, and all the other mess.
But the biggest problem I have with shared services team is that they're enforcing rules on people. That's the thing. It's where I really, really kind of like you need to use my pipeline.
It's okay, and we're already towards the end, so I don't want to belabor this one. But there's a fine line of enforcing versus really good guardrails.
Yes.
Because I could have the exact same pipeline on either side of that tipping point, and it's all in how it's presented. It's like, because at the end of the day, everybody we work with, I'm staring at you right now. You're a 2-year-old because you're going to want to have it your way. But I want to be able to make it to where you think it's your idea, but in reality, you're using my stuff because I'm the one that has to maintain it. Because where it gets bad is, okay, if I've said, okay, you have to use this, your first reaction to that is, no, I want to do my own thing. I do it my way, as my daughter used to say. But in the case of doing it her way, I still have to deal with the fallout if it doesn't work.
Or not.
Most of the time it is. And it just depends.
It's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. I'm in charge of it, so it needs to be my way. But I'm also in but that's also the reason why I'm in charge of it. Also, maybe if it wouldn't be only my way, I would not be in charge of it. Or
right, like in one of the scenarios that I tend to preach to shared services teams is like, look, don't necessarily own it. You own it at the end of the day. You own it because you have to operate it. But let everybody else kick in and let it be crowdsourced, for lack of a better term. Yeah. But you have at least one vote in the final commit when it merges to master. But everybody else came together, and if 4 teams said this is the way it needs to be, and one team says no, that's horrible, nobody should ever do that, then you let those 5 teams fight it out. You're on the sidelines at that point.
Exactly.
Basically, your final step is, it's basically like a security team. Right? Security, unfortunately, is typically, no matter what we say, is still the last step before anything hits production. So security can pull the big red lever and shut down the whole thing, no matter what. So
we're gonna fight on that one, but in the next episode.
In another episode. All right. So usually at the end we have this big long thing. I've got it cut down a lot. So right now, if you just go to devopsparadox.com/contact, you'll find all of our information. You want to contact us, you can get everything. And that's all I'll say about that. In the next episode, we're going to talk about something quite exciting.
I'm excited.
And if you're in the U.S., today is the day before Thanksgiving in the U.S., so go eat lots of turkey. Go run a 5K before you eat lots of turkey, which I don't understand why people do that. Because you're not in a 5K, you're not going to burn enough calories to offset all the food you're going to eat that day. Maybe a little bit, but not enough. And by the way, we got a listener response on Voxer. Giovanni called and left us a message. So Giovanni, you are getting a book, but hey, here's the comment from Giovanni.
Hey, so I have been listening to DevOps Paradox for like 2 weeks. I haven't heard about the podcast before, but it seems very informative, and I have been enjoying it a lot. It gave me some insights on how to think about DevOps when dealing with this on my company, and great informations about the career and how to use the tools and I love that you guys are talking about new tools like Jenkins X. That Victor is a co-host of this podcast. I have been enjoying a lot. Thank you very much for that.
Giovanni, man, thanks for all your great comments. We appreciate it. If you want to leave us, again, all this is on the DevOps.com or DevOpsParadox.com, DevOps.com. Boy, okay, I would get in a lot of trouble with that. DevOpsParadox.com/contact. You can leave us a voice message using Voxer. So just go do that. If you have any questions, you can leave us a message there as well on Voxer. Anything else today, Victor? We beat up on a lot of people, including ourselves. So that's good.
Exactly.
If people don't think we're equal opportunity offenders, just listen to us to the end. It always makes a difference. Thanks again for listening to episode number 31 of DevOps Paradox.